this is part 3 of the clip on of the series on doing the John Deere 2030 steering. So in this clip, and there may be another part, which I'm just not sure yet, we're actually fitting, there's a Sparex kit that we sell, and the Sparex part number is S.58836, and I've fitted this kit to many of these columns over the time. It works okay. Well, it works well. There is a but though, and whenever you do these things, there's always a bloody but, isn't there? Now, in the kit's copied John Deere in their kit, and up the steering column, which is this fella here, but I'll chop the head off there. There's these 6 O-rings. Now, John Deere also has these brown O-rings in the kit, and look, they work okay, but the warning is, if your tractor's getting a little bit old and you've got a little bit of extra leakage there and things like that, these O-rings will fail over time, and they're made of a material that goes hard, and when it goes hard it crumbles, and sometimes when you have oil coming out of the top of your steering column under your steering wheel, these O-rings here have gone hard. Now, the Sparex kit's just copied John Deere with the material, and look, they're okay, but on the older tractors I do prefer to fit the genuine seals. Now, the genuine O-ring number is T25335, and with the genuine O-ring, they're a black O-ring, not the brown stuff, and they're quite a hard O-ring, so I believe they're 90 Duro. So what I've done in the past, I had trouble getting these for a little while, and my local hydraulic store, my local NZ in Bundy here where I live, my local store, I took a couple of these fellas in, and we got the black 90 Duro ones. So look, that's just something you can choose to do if you like. I choose to do it because my tractor's old. The steering column, this is off as a 1640, but what I will probably do is the same column goes on a John Deere 2030, and I have a 2030 here to do some slashing with. It's my main slashing tractor, and to my knowledge the steering column has never been looked into, so I'll probably do this up and I'll just pop it on that tractor later on when I need to. Not at the moment, there's nothing wrong with it. So alright, follow along and we'll see what we can get up to. Something I may or may not have mentioned in the previous part, I'm not sure yet, was in these 2 valves there's a piece of pipe in each one, and that's what the valve slides back and forth on. Those 2 bits of pipe, doesn't matter where they go, it can go either way. The washers that hold your shims in, there's 2 of them the same size, doesn't matter which way you go. Now there's 2 needle bearings, top and bottom are the same. Where the needle bearings run, you have a tapered washer, so it goes, and a flat washer, so it goes tapered washer, needle bearing and flat washer, and the top and the bottom of those 2 are exactly the same. No difference at all. All the shims, there's only 2 sizes of shims in the thing. These shim your spacers up. These big fellas here, or the thin walled ones, they go behind these to shim your travel up. So with your shims, just keep them all together. That's what I do anyway. There's 2 washers with a, just trying to see if you can see that clearly. 2 black washers with a step in them. They are the same number. Does not matter which one goes to which end. And the main difference inside is with these two valves. This valve here, you'll notice there's no holes apart from the ball. This valve here, you'll notice there's 2 holes. This must go to the bottom. Don't ask me how I know. When I first learned to do these steering column, well, that was a learning experience. I must have pulled one apart half a dozen times before I worked out that I got them mixed up. And what happens when you get them mixed up, you put it together and it just pours oil out the top again. So yeah, I always stress that to everyone. I got caught with it. I didn't know to keep an eye on it, so that goes to the bottom. With the valves here, you can see that moves in there. So what are we looking for there? We're looking at that comes back nice and solid. There's a little push rod in there. The push rod for the top and the bottom valve are the same. And that valve lets the oil in. The top and the bottom are exactly the same. And we're looking that when you push it down, you can feel spring tension. When it comes back, you can feel it coming against the seat properly. So that's good. This other one, it's the same. I'm trying to look at the screen on the camera to see what you can see. And so I'll go quiet now and then, just trying to focus, getting old fast. Okay, one thing I haven't showed you is what happens if that's not right. If that goes down and the valve stays open. Well, if the valve stays open, you'll have the tractor either steering one way or the other. And what can we do to fix that? So with this little push rod here, it goes down and touches on the end of the valve. I'm just going to see, we can just see the end of the valve in there, but what we might do with it, normally I don't bother if I don't need to, but it's a pretty poor video if I don't drop something, I reckon. You can feel that goes down and touches the ball. So I put it just over here. Looks like everything's going to bounce off the bench. And you can see the ball has come out. It doesn't go anywhere because I did it on top of the collar here. Oh, sorry about that. And this is what we have. We have the little valve, the little ball, the little seat that goes up in the valve, the little spring I should say. A little bit hard for you to see there, isn't it? There's a tiny little spring there. And then there's the ball. And the ball does 2 functions. The ball comes up the end of the valve, or up against the spring, and holds tension on the spring. Watch this. This bloody thing's going to fall out everywhere in a minute. It holds tension on the valve there, and then when we put it back in with the ball in, we just centre pop the side there just to hold tension on the ball. So we'll only do one. There was no real need for me to pull that off, but if this little spring breaks, that can be the cause of steering one way and not the other, because the valve remains open, so it doesn't cut the oil flow off. So what do we look for on that? You can see a tiny little seat. I don't know if I can get it close enough for you. My fat fingers are in the road. It's focusing on my fingers, not on the thing. But there's like a little valve seat around there, so don't get these mixed up from the top to the bottom. The seat that it's been sealing against is the best place for it. So to put it back in, you put the valve in, you put the little spring in. Now might be worth pointing out. That spring, just make sure you got nice tension on it. It's all even, but you'll know if you have a broken spring. If you can't see if you've got a broken spring, you shouldn't be doing your steering. What we might do while it's out is, you can see on the valve, see these little brown rings? That's where the O-rings have sat in the housing there. So just to help it run nicely, what I do with them, I get a little bit of kerosene or a little bit of diesel or petrol, whatever your favourite poison, a little bit of 1200 sandpaper or fine sandpaper, and I just sand all that off. You can actually feel that on there. There's a little, you can just feel the mark. So we sand all that off. So look, I'll go and sand that off, and I'll come back and we'll assemble it once I've got that. Well, I've been away polishing madly. Look, we have a lovely surface there now. Doesn't look too bad at all. So where do we go from here? We get a bit of oil. Just drop a bit of oil in there. And just a bit, not a big heap. A little bit on the valve. I find it easy to put the spring in the valve. Drop the valve in. The bloody punch is magnetic. How would it get magnetic? Okay, the spring's down in tight now. Now we just bump this in until it's flush. Have a feel of that, make sure everything's feeling okay. You can feel that sitting nice and firm there. We'll get a slightly larger punch. Okay, that's good. Now all I do here is I grab a centre pop at the side, and I just pop it. You can see there. And look, there's barely a mark there, and that ball was quite tight going in, you could see that. There may be no need to do this, but I've just done it. So whether you do that or not, it's up to you. In saying that, it does have washers up against the back of it and things like that, but this valve does have to move, so there'll be a gap. So anyway, that's how I choose to do it. Whether you pop it or not, it's entirely up to you. Now, feel once again that you have good travel on the valve, and it feels nice. You can feel it coming back to centre. Now, how do we know if that's any good? Well, the deal is, you usually put a little bit of rag around your air nozzle. And put a little bit of air pressure there. And as you push the valve, as it comes off the seat, you're okay. Now, that little bit of air you can hear coming out before I press the button That's just leakage past the rag. There's nothing coming out of there. So if you can do that and feel oil coming out the top there, then it seals off. That valve's good to go. We'll just check this next one. I'm not going to pull it apart, no need. You can see that there's a little bit of bruising around the bottom of that, around the ball there, so it may have been peened a little bit or something. But anyway, no need to pull that out, but test everything you can. So look, that's good. Now these little bits of tube that go inside the valves, doesn't matter. If you get them mixed up, don't panic, don't go looking at the parts book. Just put a smear of oil around them all. Slide them in. Oh, I can feel that doing you good. And we'll just put them aside for the moment. Now with the valve pack, okay, if you remember how it works, you have these all sitting on the rod here, and there's a washer in the centre, and that washer comes and pushes on that valve, and that's how, when you turn the steering wheel one way, you'll notice the steering wheel, I'll get that down where you can see it, sorry. Okay, with these fellas here, if you remember how it went, I'll get out a bit there. If you remember how it went, it sat on the shaft, and when you turned the steering wheel left or right, because this here was captive in the housing and the shaft moves back and forth, those little O-rings sit on there, or the little circlip sits against there, and that pushes your valve open and closed. So you'll find a bundle of shims there. Have a look if they're all the same thickness. There's often thick ones and thin ones, and in my instance here, I have one thick one, two thick ones, and three thin ones. So all I do with them is pop them on here, and we try and share them out equally. Now if we have one difference, that doesn't matter, just pick a side, it won't matter. So we have a thin and a thick, and the idea for me is you get the shims, the thick shims, it's easy for me to say, the thick shims go to the outside, and I usually put the thin ones inside. So if you have a thick, thin, thick or something like that, that's okay. And then you'll notice with these bits of pipe here, it's a bit hard to see, but this has got like a chamfered edge slightly on it, and this one's a square edge. The square edge goes to the shims. So why do they have the chamfer? I believe it's just to help guide the washers in to open the valves, but maybe not. That's just me thinking out loud. So shim packs can go aside. Right, we'll start assembling this piece. We've got the valves all ready, and now it's time for the shaft. Now what are we going to look at with the shaft? Okay, first thing, if you had to bump it out, make sure it screws up the end of the ram nicely. That's a sloppy fit, that's how they are, that's good. It's a double start Acme thread by the look of it. Now on the other end here, if you had to belt it to get it out, now's the time to clean up the thread. give it a bit of a tidy up. It's far easier to do it now than try and do it later on. The thread is 3/4 UNF, so tidy that up. We had trouble getting this one off, and it does just expand it a little bit. Tidy up the seal surface, make sure the spline's okay on the end here. They're okay. There's a little bit of rust pitting here, but the seal comes up, the seal runs up here and there's a little bush there, so that's not going to worry us much. This seal here doesn't actually hold oil in, it holds dirt and rubbish out. The O-rings down along the valves there, they're the ones that do the job. So with this shaft, you grab one of the black washers with a shoulder, and you'll notice I never took the snap ring off this end. That's okay, if there's nothing wrong with it, no need. Then you grab all your shims, and if there's a thin one, put the thin one in the middle of the pack and have fat ones either side supporting it. So down we go. Then the thrust washers. The flat end of the thrust washers go to the shaft, or to the thread I should say. The top end goes to the pipe. Now that's the tube out of the centre of your valve, and this valve goes in with the holes. It's the one with the holes near the thread. I can't emphasise that enough. Okay, now with your shims in the centre, if you've already sorted them out to a reasonably even split. I've been fiddling with this while the camera's off, so I've got to do something with it again. But that's okay. Can't help but have a bit of a fiddle. So the shims go on. Once again we have a thin one there. The thin one goes in between the others, just so they support it. They go down on. The piece of tubing here, the flat end of the tubing goes down onto the valve. Then we have two washers. Those washers are for working the valves back and forth. Now we assemble that valve there. Make sure we have the flat end on there. Get rid of that bit of cotton. We slide all that back down. Once again we get the thrust washer, the tapered side down. Then you grab one of the little snap rings, and you know you got the right number of shims down the bottom end here when the snap ring is just firm to go into the groove, and when it's in the groove you have no movement of the inner parts. These bits on the outside move, but that's good, that's what we're looking for. So with them done, what else do we look for here? Okay, it's a closed centre hydraulic system. So a closed centre hydraulic system means that the oil comes to that valve there and to this valve here, and then the pump de-strokes. So these valves must be closed. So we have to find a place, and just for the moment, I'm pretty sure I can put this snap ring on and leave it on now. Now with the snap ring there's a taper there. Put the pointy bit out so you can pick it up with your pliers. Okay, after half a lifetime getting that bloody clip on, what are we looking for here? Well, when you grab these two valves, push them towards each other, and you can feel a little central spot, and you should be able to just feel a little bit of movement without those valves opening. And that's the neutral spot you're looking for. And see, that's just opening, top one's opening, bottom one's opening, but you should be able to just feel a little neutral in the middle, which I can. Now, if you don't have that neutral, you need to buy some of these shims. If it's way too sloppy, take a small shim out. And by doing that, we know that the tractor hydraulics won't leak past these valves. It being a closed centre system, it must come and stop at those two valves. So hold them together tightly, and you can just feel it, just a little rock. And look, it's probably 5 or 10 thou, and you need that to make sure that these valves aren't feathering open a little bit. So look, check that out. Pardon me. Check that out, it is important. And then what holds the whole show together? Pardon me. You've got a dry throat, must need a beer or six. Look, and we just compress that once more, put a new snap ring on there, and that's how we go. Same way as we pulled it off. Well, I won't show that, there might be swearing involved. So that bit's done. So we have the spring in the end with the shoulder up this way, and you can see it holds the snap ring in there. The spring's compressed now to hold it all in. We have movement back and forth. We can see both valves opening, and when we feel for that little piece in the movement, a little movement in the centre there, it's there. So that piece is done for the moment. What do we do next? Well, we can start replacing a few O-rings. I'll just give it a quick blow off. Now I've got a pretty pink O-ring pick in here. Now this is the main gland that sits up the bottom of the back piece. You have an O-ring and a backup washer. The backup washer's gone hard in this case. And inside here, in the centre, see if I can get to where you can see it. But in the centre there's an O-ring, and there's also another backup washer. The neoprene backup. So after you've got them out, just give it a little bit of a rinse in whatever your favourite cleaner is. Dry him up, make sure the grooves are good. We'll zoom away a little bit because I'm going to move out of frame for bloody sure. Oh man, I've still got the coughs. Now the thin black backup washer, there's a flat side and a curved side. The curved side is to support the O-ring. That just pops on the groove. Make sure that it sits down squarely. And then there should be a new O-ring for that. Easy as that. Oh, now we have an O-ring and a backup for inside. Now this sits up the black housing, so we have the oil that sits like this, and the piston works back and forth like that. So wherever the oil is, the O-ring's towards the oil, the backup washer is away from the oil to support the O-ring so it doesn't flex and go out of shape. So we have a backup washer to sneak in there first. Well, these backup washers, they can be a bugger of a thing to get them sitting out right. Actually, we'll just try and stretch it a bit open first. And the reason we do this is because where they sit like that, they don't want to sit over the rod, they're too small. And when you stretch them, there's a bit better chance of getting it through. And hopefully it sits out wide. So once again, the backup washer goes in the same position as the backup washer on the other side, or on the outside I should say. So we put that backup washer in, and you'll see that backup washer is nice and wide in the hole now, where before it was like that. And every time you don't stretch them, when you push this in, it cuts it. So then, on the oil side, once more, we just pop an O-ring in the groove. So that's our gland. We have the O-ring with the backup washer towards the flange, the O-ring and the backup washer, the neoprene backup with the backup towards the flange. So backup towards the flange, backup towards the flange. You can't go wrong. Well, you probably can. But anyway. Now this is your main piston. What do we look for here? We make sure that's clean. So I'll have to go and clean this. But you make sure that this is tight. I have seen these come loose. If they do, you can possibly get a spanner to hook in there and go round. I have one for it, I believe. I think it'll be in my hydraulic stuff, but yeah, you can set it in there, Loctite it on and let it go. The only reason you need to take that off is if there's a lot of slop between this, there's a pin under there, and with the, if you can feel a lot of slop in this pin here, sometimes they can open up, which is something you don't want, so you need to take it off then. But look, if this is tight, there's no other wear that you can see, just go and clean it up and we'll come back and put some O-rings on. I'll go and clean this one up and I'll be back in a little bit. Right, just shift the camera down a little bit, and I've cleaned this up. Now with this piston here, we have a backup washer, which we can just wind on. Make sure he's sitting nice and flush as you can around the corner there. Then the O-ring comes in to hold him in place a little. Make sure the O-ring's not twisted or anything like that. Then the other one. And there you go. That's all we need to do there. Now this fella here, we just put a little bit of oil around there just to lubricate it going on. And look, what we're looking for now too, that I probably should mention, is when you stick your finger in the hole there, you should feel the O-ring higher than the housing here. If it's not, you've got the wrong O-ring in. So you should feel O-ring protrusion on each O-ring so they can do their job. Then this one here, we're just catching on the O-ring there a little bit. But that there, that's the bottom gland on. That's a nice firm fit, that's good. Now, in the end of the black housing, the big main steering column, there's another O-ring and back up like that, which will be the O-ring here. And same thing, the O-ring goes this side, the backup goes away from the main pressure. And this piston, this is the main up and down, this is your power assist piston, so it goes down for one way and up for the other. So that's all we can do on that for the moment, and it's time to work on the big black piece. Okay, now we've got the big black column on the bench. Now what do we look for that? Well, we know there were 6 O-rings down this end here. We have to make sure it's all clean in there, so we need to take it and give it a bath. We have a look for the bore in here, make sure that's okay. Very rarely is there anything wrong with that bore. Up inside, right up in deep, there's the O-ring and the backup washer. O-ring goes up first, then the backup washer, and that seals on the piston rod. The piston rod and the steering valves I've got wrapped up in a piece of rag here just to keep them clean while we're doing this bit. Another thing we look for is there's oil galleries drilled in here, so oil can get each side of the piston. One comes in here, and they've got little balls like on the valves to seal them off. Just make sure the balls are all there. They look fine. We have to clean up this housing here. That's where the main mounting gasket goes. And look, everything else looks good in here. It just needs a clean up. I'm not sure if in the kit there's an O-ring for that fitting or not. It appears they're not, so I'll have a little bit of a better look to make sure. And so I'll go and wash this, then we'll come back. Right, I can't sort of help you see down in there much. That's the roof creaking. As the sun comes out in the big steel shed, the roof expands and contracts. But look, down in the steering column here, you have a flat, then you have a little groove, then a fat groove, then a little one, then a fat one, then a little one. And the O-rings go in the little grooves, and then you have a big flat again, and then you have a little O-ring groove, a big oil groove, a little O-ring groove, an oil groove, and another one. So what I choose to do with these, to get these O-rings way down there in the groove, I use my tool that I said about making in the early bit, and I don't put any oil in it. I wash it and blow it dry, and I try and do it dry, get the O-rings in dry. Now, why do we do that? If you put oil down in there, sometimes you're trying to push the O-ring into the groove, and get the O-ring into the groove, and it just wants to keep rolling round and round and not go in the groove. With it dry, I just seem to find it easier to go in, and these O-rings sit way down here, so that the bottom O-ring is down there, so you've got a little way to go down to get them, but you have to get the 3 O-rings in. The 3 O-rings sit on the side of each valve, and look, I won't show you that, or I don't usually have much trouble getting them in, but try and do it dry and make sure you get the O-rings in the little grooves, not the big ones. But yeah, I haven't got a little miniature camera or that I can poke down the groove to show you me doing that. So we'll get it set up. I usually like to set it up in the vise here to do that, so I might just put one in and just show you how I set it. Okay, I don't know, you're against the backdrop of the boat, so I'll try and pop one in. I'm just not sure how much you're going to see. So we get the O-ring, as you put it down past the O-ring groove. I don't know if my head will have to watch this back and see if my noggin's in the way. Get one side of the O-ring into the groove. You just got to work it around. And sometimes I put it past and it's easier to pull it back than push it in, but you'll find a way to do yours. That's the fiddliest part of the whole job. Now, doing that job, if it's just leaking oil out the top, you can screw the centre out of your column and do that without undoing this, and do it on the tractor, if you're in a hurry. Look, I'll get these in off camera. It does take a little while, you do end up chasing them round and round in circles, but I'll come back once we're done. Right, all the top O-rings are in. The shed's creaking like buggery, but that's just how it goes. Now, we've turned it around in the vise just to put the bottom O-rings in. So, if you recall, the O-ring goes to the oil side on the cylinder and the backup washer will be behind that. But so it doesn't cut on the way in, these are the ones we stretch once more. Stretch them a little bit and down the hole they go. The hand's just not quite big enough to get in there, but anyway, we get there. I'm going to have to look back at the video and see if my big noggin's in the way still. I might get another O-ring pick so I can work them together. Wipe it on your pants. Make sure your missus isn't looking, eh? If you haven't got a missus, you go for it. I'm going to have to hop right in front of the camera for this, so I'll be back in a moment. Okay, the shed's still creaking. I've got the O-ring and the backup in. Now the backup goes to the top, the O-ring comes down to the bottom, like I've explained before. We put a little bit of oil around the O-ring and around the shaft here where it goes in. A bit on the O-ring. A bit on this O-ring. I'll just smear it around a bit to make sure it's round all the way. Oh, you can feel that doing you good. We also need to look inside here, make sure that the backup washer there is not hanging down. I think that's in as far as it can go. Doesn't matter which way this faces at this stage. I'll get my knockometer. Just a little tap in like that. Now, we straighten this up a little bit. That will end up going with the long side of the rectangle, that piece there. Bump that up in there, bump him right up in nice and high. This little piece, the little gland here, now that's seated home. So we've got a nice clean surface here for the gasket. When that happens, that is stuck in there, that's a good thing. Now we pick up the steering column. You put him across like that. And what we're looking to do is hold the flats here. And the reason for that is that when we put the steering column in a little while, we just don't want that bottom piece to turn, and then we can use the thread as we line it up in there, or as we put the centre piece back in there. So we'll pan out a little bit again. Makes you want to go fishing seeing that bait, doesn't it? Now, you must make sure all the O-rings inside here are all the way home. Have a look down, make sure you can see all the way. This fella here, lots of oil. Down the housing there, lots of oil. The reason I do that is just so that when this comes past the O-rings, it'll want to slide past the O-rings. So what we do now is we slide him in. Now you can feel it just coming to the O-ring there now. I think that's gone hard. Now, what we know now is that we've just started on the thread, and so now, instead of hitting it, you can feel it come past each O-ring. I need to hang on to it with something. I've got oil on my hands and that's just no bloody good. I feel it's just gone past another O-ring. Just gone past another one. Just gone past another one. We'll take that down as far as it will go. Then this piece of pipe, you'll see a little machine piece here. That goes down. Then we have to find the nut and deal with the nut. Well, on our steering here, we can't actually find a new nut. And this one's a little bit rusty around the top, but there's still plenty surface area for the seal to sit down. So because it's my tractor, I'm going to go ahead with it just to get it finished. Like if it was a customer's tractor, we would probably maybe machine it out or something like that, but I haven't got to worry about that anymore. So we'll put a little bit of Loctite on the outside of there. Now the seal goes, the spring, this side here with the spring towards the oil. That's the outside of the seal there. So the spring is on the inside towards the oil. Not that there'll be much up here, but you never know. Now have a look for a socket that's pretty close to it. That one there's a 27mm. We might just come down one size smaller. Anyone tells you don't hit your spanners, hit your sockets, tell them you've got to get the job done. I'll bring it over near the edge there where it's a bit more support. Right, seal in. Now there's an O-ring that goes on this side of the washer. And then I'll get the steering column down and we'll in here. A bit of grease on the seal, an O-ring under the lip here. I used to have a proper spanner for doing this, but then I think when I sold the business I let it go with it. So we'll just have to make do. Wouldn't be a bad little project making a new one. Now you take this down tight. And this has to hold that pipe in. and by holding the pipe in, it holds the valves down in the bottom of the column there in place, so they can't move up and down, yet the pipe and the shaft and the thread inside the valve can move up and down. So nice and firm. That's got to be good enough. Now a little bit of oil on this thread here. Away we go. Now we nip this fella up too. It's nice and windy in here, you can hear a beer can rolling along the ground. It blew off the bench before an empty one. There you go, probably not the best tool for the job, but it's the tool we have. Now the steering wheel, put a bit of oil in there. Pump the steering wheel on. Then we put the lock nut on. And I won't put that on just yet because I want to actually, it's a different steering wheel for my tractor when I put this one on. But what I would like to bring your attention to, I'll try and get you in a better frame. Not a better frame of mind, just a better frame. Now, when we turn right, it pulls the piston up. Now see the movement there in the steering column? That's working those valves inside. So look, I'll just grab a ruler and measure that. Just so you know how you're going with it. Okay, we're going there from 16 mil down to 13 mil. So we've got 3 or 4 millimetres, and that movement there, people often say that steering that you've done up, it's got movement up and down in the column. Well, the way it works, it just has to have that. There's no way it can't have it. So, and what happens is when you keep turning one way, it actually moves the top and the bottom. So I'll take you out here a little bit, see if I can get you back. Now when we turn left, it comes up. I'm just holding the gland in here. And when we turn right, it goes the other way. And in the meantime, we have the hydraulics opening the valve here and putting oil on one side or other of that piston. So that's it. There's a new gasket here for the bottom, and to put it back on the tractor, just copy. It's an exact reverse of the clip we did on pulling it out. Look, that's it for this little series on doing the John Deere, the black steering column up. Look, I hope you got something out of it. It ended up being a bit drawn out. That was just on my end getting busy. But look, it's a very simple job. Don't be scared to try it. Making up the little O-ring pick that I just threw on the floor, the little right angle one. Look, that is a big help, having a set of O-ring picks or something like that. But look, it's a very basic job. Just take it step by step, and when you lay the shaft down on the bench to do the job, take photos. Just about everyone has a camera in their phone now, and as you take things off and lay them out before you go and wash them, take photos. And also, like all jobs, if you're not used to it or not conversant with it, clean up your work area. Not have the tire gauge on it like mine. You ever had to do what I say, not as I do, and that's it. Well, look, clean your bench up, and the idea of that, of cleaning your bench before you start, is that if there's any leftover parts, you know they weren't there beforehand, and you know that you've either left them out or something like that. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. We'll look for something else to pull apart soon. I don't know whether it'll be John Deere or Massey Ferguson, or I've even bought a little David Brown out the back to pull apart and play with, so we'll just see. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you get something out of it. You got any questions, put them in the messages down the bottom here. I do check them every couple of days, so if I can help, I will if I can. Yeah. Alright, catch you later, eh?